You know, I was actually debating whether or not I was going to even bother putting out a video on this, because let's all be completely honest with ourselves for a minute. We all knew how this was going to go down. We knew from the minute they announced this show how this was going to turn out. And there's always going to be people who are like, oh, you can't say anything until you watched it. And, you know, fair enough, I do that. Even if it's something I'm not looking forward to, I still, give it a chance and try to form as much of an unbiased opinion as I possibly can. But sometimes you just know. You just know exactly how you're going to feel about something the minute you lay eyes on it. And I think that's definitely the case with this. I've also kind of put myself into a bit of an awkward position because, well, in my previous video, for those of you who haven't seen it, I did a vlog putting out a call for artists and animators because I'd like to try and get my own animated pilot produced. And there's this narrative going around saying that you're not allowed to say bad things about Thundercats Roar if you want to work in the industry or whatever. Yeah, that's right, kids. Don't form an opinion. Just sit there like the good little automaton you are and consume product and wait for next product to consume. 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 Obey. Sleep. Sleep. Not that I really have any aspirations to work in the industry at the moment. I don't even know if it's possible at this point. But I am a firm believer that you should be allowed to voice your opinion on whatever you want. As long as you keep it civil, of course. And just for the record, that includes anything I make and anything I plan to make in the future. Even if it's a negative opinion, it's still your right. And you shouldn't let anyone try to silence you. So before I get into my thoughts on the show, I decided to put up a bit of a disclaimer. I don't normally do this because I feel like stuff like this should go without saying, but considering the uproar this show has caused, I feel like it might be appropriate. So let me just say that this video should not be taken personally. I'm not directing this at any specific people. I watched the show, I gave it a fair chance, and I'm going to give it what I think is a fair review. And on top of that, don't be an asshole. Don't go around attacking people who are associated with the show. I don't condone any of that, alright? Okay. That being said, this show was painful. Anyway, Thundercats Roar was announced way back in May of 2018, and it received a, to put it lightly, negative reaction from the majority of people who saw that trailer, and I think that's kind of putting it in the most gentle way I possibly can. Then after that, things kind of went silent for a while. There was no utterance of the show from Cartoon Network or anybody associated with it, and people were starting to wonder if maybe they had just canceled it altogether because perhaps Cartoon Network saw the backlash and said to themselves, hey, maybe this isn't such a good idea. Oh, how naive we all were. Fast forward to January of 2020, and Cartoon Network sort of quietly put the first 2 episodes on their app. Not on TV or on YouTube or anything. They just kind of shoved it onto the Cartoon Network app and probably thought that nobody would notice. Oh, we noticed. So I watched the first 2 episodes, and normally for Rob Watches, I do 3 at minimum, sometimes more. Sometimes I'll do a whole season if it's, released all at once or something like that. But, I think I got the gist of the show just from the first 2 episodes. So, yeah, I think I'm good. So the first 2 episodes are basically the Exodus story arc from the original series. It's, the Thundercats left Thundera because it was destroyed, and they ended up on Third Earth, and the mutants followed them, and they got into a fight with them, and they met Mumm-Ra, and yeah, that's pretty much the gist of it. And I immediately had problems with this. For one, for some reason they were using the score from the original show. All that profound incidental music they would play throughout each episode. And it didn't fit with the show's style, like, at all. It just sounded kind of awkward. Then they joked about Jaga being dead. Like, there was this whole thing where he was narrating, and then he was like, I'm Jaga, and I'm a scary ghost, ooh! In the original show, Jaga died because the trip to Third Earth was going to take a very long time, so everyone went into a sleep state. So he spent the rest of his life piloting the ship so that they would arrive safely. He died at the controls of the ship. Hilarious, right? So then the Thundercats arrived on Third Earth, and they're immediately speaking in what I like to call Adventure Time lingo. You know, they were saying stuff like, this is awesome, and stuff like that. I love Adventure Time, but sometimes I kind of hate the trends that it started, because you just keep hearing them over and over, and it's kind of sickening at this point. Then Lion-O shows up, and he's running around like a hyperactive idiot, just like we knew he would. And then they had this thing where Tigra was like trying to be some kind of mentor to him, and being like trying to take the moral high ground on everything, and then Lion-O like wouldn't listen, and he would just go off and do whatever it is he was doing. The thing about Lion-O from the original show was that he was basically a child trapped in a man's body. He was in the stasis sleep when the ship crashed, and when he woke up, he had grown up. He wasn't a child anymore. He missed out on a lot of important years. And one of the great things about the show is that he was always surrounded by people that helped guide him and mentor him and, you know, teach him right from wrong. And it was, you know, he had like Jaga guiding him and all the rest of the Thundercats, and even Snarf guiding him as well. And I loved Snarf in the original show. I think people give Snarf a lot of crap that he doesn't deserve. In the new show, he's like a robot or something. He's some kind of walking plot device where, like, if they need something, like a thing on his back will open up and it'll solve whatever problem they're doing. And, you know, I never really cared for Snarf in the 2011 Thundercats either. I mean, it was okay. It was just, you know, they made him into sort of like a cute animal sidekick, and he never talked or anything. But I really think people don't appreciate how great Snarf was in the original show. Honestly, there's really not much else to say about this. They fight the mutants. Mumm-Ra shows up, and he's pretty much a joke, and that's it. This show, if I can say one positive thing about it, was pretty much what I expected. So, I guess that's something. I guess there are a couple of other positive things I can say about it. The voice acting was good, for what it's worth. You had Max Middleman as the voice of Lion-O, and he had that good comedic delivery, I guess. Dana Snyder is in it. I love Dana Snyder. He's one of my favorites. It's always great to hear him. Everyone else was fine, I suppose. I did like that Mumm-Ra had his staff, because he didn't have that in the original show. That's from the action figure. So I guess that's a nice little touch. I suppose the humor is fine for what it is. You know, nothing great, nothing, you know, that no knee slappers. There were, you know, the few bits that landed, they were the kind of jokes where it's like, it's not funny enough to laugh, but you still acknowledge that it's supposed to be humor. You know, like something will happen and you'd be like, and that's about it. For example, they established the Burbles in this, who are awesome as always. I always love the Burbles. And they had this whole thing where they were obsessed with helping and building things. And then there was a point where they finished Cat's Lair, and then they were all sad because there was nothing else to build. And then Cat's Lair gets damaged, and then they were like, yay! And you're like, oh, okay, yeah, that's, that sure is a joke. I would probably care a lot more if maybe this was something else. Like, if this had been its own thing and not use the Thundercats name, you know, we could look at it and go, alright, yeah, that's funny, I suppose, and then we'd all move on with our lives. There wouldn't be any backlash to that. And you know what, I would even accept that this would be, you know, like a one-time parody You know, if it was in like an animated sketch show or something like that, or if it was like a, you know, a YouTube video or, you know, something like that. But it's not. This is supposed to be the new Thundercats. This is going to be a series. And I think that's where a lot of the problems are. Because you see, way back in 2011, Cartoon Network had previously rebooted Thundercats. And, you know, even with that show, a lot of people weren't entirely sure about it. I mean, including myself. You know, when I saw the designs, I was like, what is this? And then when it came out, it was awesome. And people loved it. And then after about a season, they completely ditched it. And we never heard from it again. And I truly believe that that is why people are so mad about this. Because they had a show, had a good show, well-produced show, and people loved it, and then they just kind of abandoned it. And while we're at it, don't believe the rhetoric that's been going around that says the 2011 Thundercats was canceled because nobody was watching. Because that is not true. Cartoon Network pretty much killed that show on its own. And they barely advertised it. There was barely any mention of any merchandise. They had a great toy line. Apparently there were commercials for it because I found them on YouTube, but I don't remember seeing any of them. And then they released a shovelware game on the DS. Not even the 3DS, which was out at the time. The DS. And it sucked. And around the time, Cartoon Network was doing this with a lot of shows. You know, they had some really great programs, and then they just kind of got rid of them. You know, remember the DC block? They had Green Lantern, the animated series, which was great. And while it did pretty much have an ending, it could have continued on. And I think some people were disappointed in that. And then there was Young Justice, which is a whole other thing. And man, people were pissed when Young Justice got canceled. But hey, at least that got a revival. Who knows what'll happen with the 2011 Thundercats. They'll probably never see the light of day again. But I truly believe that the backlash for Thundercats Roar was all the residual frustration and sense of betrayal from Cartoon Network that's been just sort of festering over the years. And then, you know, they produced a really good show, and then they give us Thundercats Roar, and people just hated it. Understandably so. And then, of course, there was the original show, which people tend to dismiss because, oh, it's just an 80s cartoon. It was there to sell toys. If you'd like to know more about the original Thundercats, I actually did a review on it a few years ago. It was my 100th review, and I had planned it out for a very long time, even long before Thundercats Roar was announced, because it was a show that I grew up with. It was one of the first cartoons I ever watched, and you know, I decided to make it my 100th review, and it's one of the longest videos I've done. I worked really hard on it, and I'm very proud of it. And, you know, I was fair with it. I pointed out a lot of the things that didn't work, and, you know, but there's so much about it that's still really good. Like, a lot of the ideas are good. The messages they had were very good. And if you want to know more about it, I'd say check out my video. But as for Thundercats Roar, I think it's safe to say that you can skip it. I think even looking at it objectively, like, it doesn't really do anything. It doesn't do anything new. It doesn't do anything spectacular. Other than using the Thundercats name, it doesn't really stand out from anything else. It just kind of is. And some could argue, you know, it's meant to be a kid's show, and let me just say that there are so many better shows right now for kids. There's DuckTales on Disney. I just recently caught up with that. It show's fantastic. There's Owl House, which I haven't even watched yet, but I've heard so many good things about. Infinity Train, I started watching Season 2 just recently, and it's really good. There's so many shows on Netflix, you know, Voltron Legendary Defender, The Dragon Prince, Troll Hunters, Three Below, Hilda. Hilda's an amazing show, and it's still not getting the attention it deserves. There's also that Kupo show, which again, I haven't seen, but I've heard a lot of really good things about it. And you know what? Even She-Ra is better than Thundercats Roar. I didn't really like the She-Ra reboot, but you know what? It's a hell of a lot better than Thundercats Roar. At the very least, She-Ra has better production value. In fact, I'm going to make a bold statement and say that any current show is better than Thundercats Roar. Any current show. Except Teen Titans Go. Don't watch that either. Let's be honest with ourselves. This is just a clone of Teen Titans Go, and I'm baffled at the fact that Teen Titans Go is still going on. That show's been on for 7 years. Shouldn't the audience, the target audience, have like grown up by now? How the hell is that show even still going? Who's watching that? And do we really want Thundercats Roar to be the next Teen Titans Go? I mean, is that what we really want? Do we want the entirety of the Cartoon Network airways to be just Thundercats Roar and Teen Titans Go? And Gumball, I guess? I like Gumball. Gumball is one of my favorite shows that Cartoon Network has ever had. But, you know, even I get sick of it every once in a while. Hell, people who watch Teen Titans Go, people who like Teen Titans Go, got sick of the fact that all they were showing all day was Teen Titans Go. Either way, I think this show is here to stay, at least for the time being. I don't know what the future holds for this, considering, you know, the backlash it's getting, and I've already seen some reviews for it, and not a lot of people are very happy with it. I really am baffled by the fact that they pushed forward with this, considering, you know, the amount of hate that even just the trailer got, and, you know, I truly believe that those dislikes are there for a reason with stuff like this, because at the end of the day, your viewers are your customers, and if your customers aren't happy, then, well, you're not going to sell your product. Though to be fair to the Sonic the Hedgehog movie, at least they listened to people and tried to fix things. As for Thundercats Roar, you know, they seem to have stubbornly pushed on. I'm guessing that they were kind of obligated to. I'm sure there's a lot of behind-the-scenes stuff that happened. You know, they probably legally had to put it out. There's probably contracts involved and stuff like that. I don't know. This is just me speculating. I was not there when this show was produced, so who knows? But it does seem to be the most logical reason. There's also a lot of talk going around that this was made out of spite, and I kind of don't want to believe that because, well, nobody was really talking about Thundercats at the time. It wasn't exactly a hot topic, unlike Teen Titans Go, which came out on the tail end of the original Teen Titans show, and I think that's why a lot of people were really mad about it. Even the original creators went on record saying that they knew people were going to hate it, and I'm sure Thundercats Roar people felt the same way, but then Teen Titans Go went out of its way to just be spiteful toward the original fan base, and, you know, it went out of its way to make fun of it and just rub things in their face, and, you know, I can't support a show like that. There's a lot of YouTubers that made a good name for themselves, you know, going over Teen Titans Go episodes, you know, every week, and I just can't bring myself to do that. As much as I would love those numbers, believe me, this channel needs it. I can't do it. I just can't. And the reason being is because, well, if there's something I don't like, I just don't talk about it. Which is how you should handle things like that. The worst thing you can do to something you don't like is just not talk about it. Just completely ignore it. And, you know, that's equivalent to, you know, the old saying, vote with your wallet. You know, vote with your views. And, you know, you give something as few views as possible. And even if you don't, just by talking about it can sometimes, you know, spread word. And I think a lot of times that's kind of what production companies expect, especially nowadays. I do know that is kind of a thing because I did study advertising in school, so a lot of times people bank on negative press to spread the word because negativity kind of spreads faster than anything positive. And I just can't, I don't want to be a part of any of that, which is why when I see something like Thundercats Roar or Teen Titans Go, I just don't talk about them anymore. I say, you know, I give my opinion every once in a while, but, you know, I just move on with it. Because, especially in the case of Teen Titans Go, I just really can't, I can't support a show that's just built on spite. Like, is this really what you want your show to be about? Is this what you want your legacy to be? Just an entire group of people just hating on you and you became popular because of that? Like, is that really what you want? And I get people saying stuff like, oh, well, the movie was hilarious, you should watch it. And I'm like, I don't care. This whole franchise was built on the hatred of other people. I can't get behind something like that. And I think the same goes for Thundercats Roar. And even though I'm kind of giving them the benefit of the doubt and saying maybe they didn't make this show out of spite, that it's still not good, and I'm just not going to talk about it or support it anymore. And if you feel the same way, I recommend you do the same. But yeah, that's it. I'm done with Thundercats Roar. I saw everything I need to see, and I'm just not going to talk about it anymore. I might mention it in passing. If I ever do a review on 2011 Thundercats, I'll probably bring it up, but that's it. I said my piece, and I'm done. I'm just going to move on to other projects that I probably should be working on, but instead I did this video, so yeah, bit of a different Rob Watches video, but bit of a different situation we're in right now. So that's all I got for Thundercats Roar. Let me know what you thought of it in the comments, and if you liked it, it's okay. Don't worry, I'm not mad at you, but try to keep things civil. But that's all I got. Thanks for watching. My name is Rob, and have a wonderful day.